All right, Shalom. Want to begin by giving all glory and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rechak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, the great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect, and shalom to all the Akim pushing this truth with sincerity. It's your brother Itazawan from the GMS Columbus branch coming back again with another video through the Spirit. Lord's will it be edifying. And pretty much through the Spirit, gonna do another connecting ancient times to now. And the Spirit just led me to the prayer of Azariah. Okay, a beautiful chapter. I haven't been over this chapter in a while, but I just wanted to read this passage and, bring out whatever the Spirit allows. Okay, and connect, these ancient times or ancient accounts to our walk as individuals in this truth today in modern day, and how these things can help forward our walk, all right, and help us build upon our spirit as we draw nigh to perilous times, as we draw nigh to the end. Okay, and in that, we're going to be faced with persecutions. We're going to be faced with times where the Heavenly Father is going to truly test our faith, and we have to be ready. And as it is written, let's just go to it. I'll bring this out often, because when we read these scriptures, ultimately, we have to understand that these things are here for our learning. Okay? Romans 15:4 says, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope." You see? So these accounts, going all the way to Genesis, on down to Revelation, throughout the Apocrypha as well, these things, ultimately were written, for the end times concerning, those who will serve Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai with truth and sincerity. And in these accounts, in these passages, these epistles, etc., we are to search them and, like I said, apply them to our walk, okay, our individual walks, and learn from them, that we may, like it says, have patience, comfort via the scriptures, via the record that the Heavenly Father left, okay? And now we are able to tap into these things with understanding and use these things and apply them, as they are, as needed, okay? So I wanted to dive into this chapter. I like doing these connecting ancient times, and now that's pretty much my thing. May go with a prayer of Manasseh as well. Like I said, these things help us all as individuals, and different histories and times where men had to show forth their faith or dealt with particular situations, that we deal with in this modern day, in this modern captivity, because you got to understand the prophets throughout were in all these captivities, okay? We have a record according, to these captivities. And while men were in the midst, they wrote these things down, different situations, okay, different times where their faith was tested, and how they ultimately leaned upon Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai in the time of trouble, okay? And even in, times where we were prosperous, dealing with our beloved Solomon, or when we was reigning via the throne of David, David had a record of situations he went through in his walk, okay, as a man of the Lord. And even times, where, some Jake went off, those things are written for our learning as well, on how not to be, okay? So let's dive into it. This is the prayer of Azariah, it's only one chapter, but chapter 1. It says, "And they walked in the midst of the fire, praising the Most High and blessing Yahweh." Right. Okay, and this reminds me real quick in Acts, the 5th chapter, concerning the disciples and how they had just faced persecution, via the Sanhedrin, okay, at that time. And real quick, matter of fact, let's grab another precept in Matthew, the 5th chapter. Real quick, this is Matthew 5:10. It says, "Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Okay? Because I think I got Daniel pulled up. Yep, I got Daniel pulled up, and pretty much this was during the time of the besieging of Jerusalem. Okay? And pretty much at this time you had the southern tribes who were occupying the land. Okay? This is after, the Syrian Empire took down the northern tribes. Okay, and ultimately Nebuchadnezzar, okay, besieged Jerusalem. And in that, he took, pretty much captives a lot of the Judites, the priests, okay, those of higher stature, and he left a remnant of them in the land. But those who come from the king's lineage or the king's line, he took, Daniel being one of them, okay? But let's just jump back to prayer of Azariah, get some more reading, and then we could tie in a little bit of history. Prayer of Azariah 1 and 2. It says, "Then Azariah stood up and prayed on this manner, and opening his mouth in the midst of the fire said, Blessed art thou, O Yahweh, God of our fathers. Thy name is worthy to be praised and glorified forever." Right. And this here, man, you go into this account, all right, pretty much through the spirit. Let's just dive into a little bit just so we understand what's happening and the situation at hand that these men had to face, because he had men with him as well who had to enter into that fire. So let me see. Let's just start at the top. Daniel 1 at the top. I'm gonna go KJV. This is, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And Yahweh gave Jehoiakim, a king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God of the Most High, and he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God." Right. So let's look up Shinar real quick, just so we understand where this landmass was. Okay. Shinar, country of two rivers, the ancient name for the territory later known as Babylonia or Chaldea. Okay. So this was in the midst of Babylon. Pretty much this is the beginning of it. All right. Let me do some, make sure. D, get no disruptions. Verse 3, "And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes' children, in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge." Right, like I said, he brought in I forget where that's at in Chronicles. It kind of taps into this. Lord's will, I can find it. I believe it's maybe 2nd Chronicles, like the last chapter, maybe. It goes into, some more of the history concerning you know, Nebuchadnezzar's agenda, okay, as he was besieging. So he pretty much was taking those of high stature, those who possessed great knowledge and wisdom, those who had renowned names in the land, and used them to help forward his kingdom, okay? And then those who, were just, pretty much a citizen Israelites, so to speak, your average Israelites, they stayed in the land. Okay, and then, if you understand that goes later down the line in history as well. All right, I believe concerning Zerubbabel, etc. Or is it Nehemiah? All right, the rebuilding of the temple, etc. All right, and how you had Jake who was still in the land, but, pretty much weren't doing the Lord's work, etc. But let me see. Let's just get this 2 Chronicles 36. Let's start at 5. It says, Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, his God. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of Yahweh to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim was in his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And Jehoiakim, his son, reigned in his stead. Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh. And when the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of Yahweh, and made Zedekiah his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem, right? So, pretty much Nebuchadnezzar set up Zedekiah, okay, as pretty much, I would say, a puppet king, or, in a sense, okay, over Jerusalem. Pretty much someone to report to, all right, etc., that he deemed, all right, or put in that stead, for his benefit. Zedekiah was 120 years old, and he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh his God, and humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of Yahweh. And he also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by God. But he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart from turning unto Yahweh God of Israel. Moreover, all the chief of the priests and the people transgressed very much after all the abominations of the heathen, and polluted the house of Yahweh which he had hallowed in Jerusalem. And Yahweh God of their fathers sent to them by his messengers, rising up betimes and sinning, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers of the Most High, and despised his words, and misused his prophets, till the wrath of Yahweh arose against his people, till there was no remedy. You see? So just some history, concerning, the situation behind us going into the Babylonian captivity. Okay? Let me keep reading. It says, therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion upon young man or maiden, old man, or him that stooped for age. He gave them all into his hand, and all the vessels of the house of the Most High, great and small, and the treasures of the house of Yahweh, and the treasures of the king and of his princes, all these he brought to Babylon. See? And they burnt the house of the Most High, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem, and burnt all the palaces thereof with fire, and destroyed all the goodly vessels thereof. Right? And this is the first sacking of the temple. Okay? Which ultimately this was prophesied about via David. All right, Psalms 137. Because who attended this? Esau, Edom. Okay. Let's keep reading. It says, and them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, you see, where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the king of Persia, which was Cyrus. Okay. So we were in the midst of that captivity. Okay, and that was the point. It says, and them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants to him and his sons to reign in the kingdom, to reign of the kingdom of Persia, until the reign of the kingdom of Persia. Okay, yep, and it's just more history concerning that, and it goes into that. All right, but like I said, those who escaped, also became servants to Nebuchadnezzar, etc. And it's going to go into that. All right. And then real quick, I just want to look up Nebuchadnezzar real quick. Nebuchadnezzar or however you want to say it. May Nebu protects his crown, the great king of Babylon who captured Jerusalem and carried Judah captive. See? Anyways, let's keep reading. All right, where we at? Verse 4. Daniel won't force his children, in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. And among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. It says, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name Belshazzar, and Hananiah Shadrach, and to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. All right, or Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. All right, it said, the scripture. It's like you. If a man's ways please the Lord, he make even his enemies at peace with him. It says, and the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who have appointed your meat and your drink, for why should he see your faces worse likened than the children which are of your sort? All right, so he was scared to, to pretty much work in Daniel's favor concerning him not being defiled with the king's meat. These things were sacrificed unto idols, and may have had unlawful food. They were serving them, etc. So Daniel was like, man, I'm not trying to eat that madness, And pretty much the eunuch, that was over the what's the word I'm looking for? Jurisdiction of Daniel, okay, and his peers. All right, was like, man, I don't want you to look all sick and shit. You're not eating, and I gotta present you and make sure you're fat. All right, so you can serve the king. Where we at? It says, then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of eunuchs has set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink, which that goes in the vegetables. All right. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. And for these 4 children, the Most High gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king, and in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. Right, man, understanding, man, our lineage, our man, we possessed a great deal of knowledge, man. And Daniel, Mishael, Hananiah, and Azariah, man, they were on the top of the chain, and they were young men at this time. It reads, and Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. All right, so Daniel lived, in the midst of both these captivities, the Babylonian captivity and a portion of, I believe, the Medo-Persian captivity. Okay, but I just wanted to get to the part concerning the 3 brothers. So you really just gotta read it all. But we know this account. Let me see where I'm at on time. 22 minutes. It's not bad. But I couldn't make this part, But let's just keep reading, man. Daniel, the 2nd chapter. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king of Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. Man, you got to understand, man, this is heavy. When you really sit and, ponder upon, these settings, man, these ancient times, these ancient kingdoms, you had, men, who were just like you do now, who possess, certain gifts on the left-hand side, magicians and astrologers, etc., just like you do now. It was just ancient then. Verses 5, it says, the king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you show, and it's going to show you how rough things were then, man. Things were serious, more serious, even though things are highly serious now. It was a very, very manly spirit in the world at that time. Verses 6, it says, but if ye show the dream and in the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretations thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show it before the king, except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth, and the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said, Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he will give him time, and that he will show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and they would desire mercies of the Most High, God of heaven, concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in the night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven, which is Yahweh. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name Yahweh forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. So the Lord, opened up the mind of Daniel to receive the understanding, the interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And this account reminds you of who? Joseph and the Pharaoh, all right, concerning his dream that he had. And he imparted that wisdom and knowledge and understanding unto Joseph at that time, just like he's doing Daniel here. Okay? Let me see. Making this long. But all this is fire. Yeah, I might just I'll just jump through. Like I said, just getting some context concerning, what was going on at this time in the prayer of Azariah. And like I said, getting the backdrop of his companions and the situation at hand. So let me just jump to Daniel, the 3rd chapter, read it, get to the point on that concerning the situation. Then we're gonna I don't know, we may just read it and then get to the prayer of Azariah, see where the spirit lies. But we have 30 minutes now. Anyways, let's keep going. This is Daniel, the 3rd chapter. At the top it says, Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. The Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes and governors, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs and all rulers of the province to come to dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. So Nebuchadnezzar pretty much had made an idol in the land. Then the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the councils, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Then an herald cried aloud to you, it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall this same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. See, so this is pretty much, going into, like I said, the history concerning the inspiration of this prayer from Azariah. Okay. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Right, and you had even Israelites doing it. All right. It says, wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thus, O king, has made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Like it. There are certain Jews, whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Right. And see, even in this account, this Lord's, well, I'm gonna add this to the title. It's another, connecting ancient times to now situation. Okay, where today we're going to be faced with this idol that's going to be set up, via the MOTB, the beast system, etc. But we are not to bow, and in that we're going to be persecuted. We say, let's just get it. Revelation, the 13th chapter, and verses 15, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, which is Esau, Edom, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And we understand that this is the modern Babylon the Great. Okay, so as before, you had, like I said, in this situation, Nebuchadnezzar, the king at that time, who set up this image, who set up this system, all right, that was to be worshipped. Okay, just like now, you got Esau, Edom, being that new king of Babylon, who ultimately is setting up this image that he wants everyone to bow down and worship. Okay, and if you don't, get down with the program, you're going to be killed. You see, that's why the scriptures say there's no new thing under the sun. All right.